Peace, everyone. Welcome to Cultural Canvases, presented by ArtAboveReality. I am your host, Badir McCleary, and your curator, of course. We on, I think, take number 2 or 3 with this good brother right here, our brother Ezra McCoy. And I love just talking with this brother, period. You know, whether it's on camera, off camera, whether it's through threads, because we always, dive into a good conversation. I might have to do some clips from the last conversation for y'all just so y'all can see the vibe of what we were talking about, and hopefully we can kind of rehash some of that, that vibe from before. Because we was going in, on some real deep stuff, especially
No,
on the
I
writing
agree.
and creative side.
I agree.
And it just was brilliant. But first, my brother, how are you doing today, man? How's everything on your side?
Peace, man. I'm doing well. Thank you. How about yourself?
Oh,
I
I'm
see
I'm
you've been
doing
doing
great,
some moving and
man.
shaking. Yeah.
Moving and shaking, bro. Like
Hmm.
just trying to find, as we talked about, trying to find just new avenues for progress, idea creation. Sometimes a change of scenery is always good to get the brain rolling, just kind of getting a chance to just to think about things. Also, I did a little bit of writing on the trip. So I drove actually from California to Texas. It
Hmm.
was about 19 hours. It was one of the best drives I've ever been on, bro, because um, just the aspect you get to just think. You don't
Hmm.
really get full thoughts out, during these days, especially living in the big city like LA or even like Atlanta. Sometimes things are always just on the move to where you're thinking at rapid pace, and sometimes you're only getting 40% of the actual thought out, and you're acting on that 40%. I was able to go full throttle with a lot of my thoughts on this ride and really hash out some really good ideas and put together some plans, a couple that we talked about before we went live. But it's just been rewarding, bro. And even thinking about some of what we talked about with the AI aspect, with the writing, the creativity aspect, with the future with brands and writing. And one of the things I had saw this morning, I was like, damn, I can't wait to talk to Ezra about this. Is that colleges, bro, are trying to, some professors at least, are trying to combat the chat GPT talk, that we started with last week. And I'm going to rehash a little bit of it. So for folks that are listening, we started talking about how creative writing could be affected by AI, by prompt engineering and things like that. And I heard this morning that there are a few professors in a couple of universities that are looking to change up their syllabus to not include typed works anymore. Like they want to go full on handwritten works and also process based deliverables, to where, like, here's 5 steps of the writing process, and I want to see how you act on each step, how you're delivering a part on each step. First of all, what do you think about that, bro? And secondly, how do you feel that will affect or help creative writing?
Well, it depends if they're going to school for, writing, right?
Yeah.
If that's an essential part. I think what one of the things that we forget, and I was just listening to Steve Wozniak. He recently did
Wise.
a talk where he was saying that people were comparing search engines to Chat
Mm-hmm.
GPT, and he was saying, yeah, but there's not really a comparison because sure you could call them both tools, but
Mm-hmm.
search engine is enabling you to search for something, you process the information, then you share what you think about it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Chat GPT removes the thinking part.
Yeah.
And so, and so in that way, I think it's possible if done in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
The professors are helping students go through a process of learning to think, even if they're not
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, look, this is not creative writing. This is not, something that you're gonna, then take in and put in your portfolio when you're applying to an MFA program, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with literature, everything to do with your thought process and how you think. And I think that's becoming more and more important this
Mm-hmm.
day and age, especially as we go through. I mean, if you think about it, right? We
Mm.
came up in an age where in elementary school on dial-up, we had to look through references online,
Yeah.
and the teachers were very strict about what's a solid reference, what's
Yeah.
not,
Yep.
what domains had certain authority, what
Mm-hmm.
didn't. Um, and even folks that went through that process, some of us still get duped by misinformation or shaded in a certain direction,
Yeah.
where I guess the big thing online, since the New York Magazine article over the last day or so, was about Huberman Labs. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot in that, of course, about his treatment towards women. And I think that was
Yeah.
probably the main thing. It's there for you to read
Yeah.
if you care to read that. But the
Yes.
interesting parts that I thought were about the lack of scientific rigor from a credentialed, doctor,
Yes.
at
Yes.
at a prestigious institution like Stanford. And so when you look at that, um, and I'm thinking about how I had came across Huberman's videos,
Mm-hmm.
and it took a minute for me to kind of see, hey, hold on, this is not always the most like rigorous presentation. He does this both
Mm-hmm.
sides thing, and he does this thing where he kind of gives you a little bit, but then somebody pointed out that it's like, hey, he's just reading the abstracts, and he's not telling you like the
Mm.
differences between the studies and all these different things. And so, and then you started to see where when he increased in popularity, the different types of sponsorships, either on the show
Mm.
or outside of the show. And when I see that, I'm like, man, I consider myself to be an intelligent individual, a discerning individual. These different things. I think it's important to do something. Going back to college and even before college, of like,
Yeah.
hey, this is not just, you can't allow generative AI to write something for you, because
Mm-hmm.
perhaps there is a way to incorporate that into a process of some written product that
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense and that is worthwhile. I'm not here to
Yes.
judge that, at least not now, right? But one thing I can say for sure is that it's worthwhile to know the process of going about coming up with your own thoughts about something, with
Mm-hmm.
your own opinions about something, and to be able to
Yes.
substantiate that. Because right now you can just go on Threads or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, say whatever, and it almost doesn't even matter what you say. It
Mm-hmm.
is guaranteed that there's going to be a whole group of people who will agree with
Yep.
you. So
Yep. Yep.
and so that's the thing where, that's the long way of saying, and I apologize to the audience that I did not do it in a soundbite, but that's the long way of saying, if that's what they're doing, in colleges, I don't know enough to agree or disagree with it, but I do
Mm-hmm.
think that it is important to experiment and try something to get people back on the path of thinking for themselves. If there
Yes.
ever was such a path, we
Right.
should we
Right.
should gently guide people back to that path.
Yeah, and that made me think. I was like, are we kind of crippled by thought equity? And I thought about that, and I was like, we used to be empowered by the equity of free thought. You know what I mean? The fact that there were countless debates. I mean, uh, Baldwin versus Buckley. Different things like that, to where these natural thoughts, just literal thoughts from the brain of a situation, analyzing it and putting it down on paper. Those things are becoming almost obsolete because
Mhm.
there are corporations, brands, or whoever, or even governments that are controlling the quote unquote free press. So where these thoughts, these ideas, um, this storytelling is becoming almost fabricated, even from a person's own mind, because of these templates or barriers that these companies put uh, on creative writing. It's like you can write creatively, but it has to stick to these standards. Now sometimes those standards aren't like MLA, you know, Bedford Handbook type citation standards. They're just a person in the back room who likes the way this writing comes across to people. That's the standard. We talked about on the last time we tried to record with Sports Illustrated, with them getting, pretty much blown up because of them having AI writing, and that creative kind of writing was gone in a sense, which kind of threw me for a loop because when I was at the Spurs game just recently, I got a chance to sit behind the writers, and I don't know if it caught me beforehand of, being at the games and seeing that courtside, but they're writing as the game is going on,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to be as creative as possible immediately. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you see that type of writing um, fitting with this new AI pre-packaged, pre-templated type of expression?
Yeah, I mean, well, I question the value of fast, right?
Mm.
Um, I would agree that there is some value in certain level of speed, of certain level of like speed of output.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I'm trying to, what I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to divide. There's an effort of like a certain speed. Maybe speed is not the right word. A consistency in output
Mm-hmm.
versus like fast, as in the game is over. On the West Coast, a game is
Mm-hmm.
over at 12:30, 1 o'clock, an NBA game, and
Mm-hmm.
that a beat writer needs to have a piece out by the time someone like me in the Eastern time zone wakes up,
Mm-hmm.
and I wake up kind of early, 5:30, and so, but that's kind of the standard.
Yeah.
And so, what you were saying is they already, for better or for worse, either they, from my understanding from beat writers I've spoken to, is they have an idea of what they want to get across, and they're looking for something that happens in the game, something that
Mm-hmm.
happens in the pregame or postgame uh, press conference,
Mm-hmm.
something that's said that they can fit into it, and then they're
Like a
like, "Oh,
lead
it's done."
almost.
I mean, maybe a lead, maybe an idea. Sometimes they're more fully formed than others, but
Mm-hmm.
you might have a theory. Maybe we should call it a theory, right?
Got you.
And you
Yeah.
say, um, the Warriors suck, and the reason they suck is because the coach doesn't know what he's doing, even though he's
Yeah.
won, 4 titles or whatever, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so then you take that, and then you see a couple nights ago where it's like, oh, well, he didn't put Steph Curry in, until X time, with
Mm-hmm.
how much left or whatever is left on the clock. And then after the game, the beat, somebody who writes for the Athletic, asked, hey, look, you like what's going on with Steph? Why didn't he come in at his regular time? And then
Yeah.
the coach says, well, we're trying to preserve him. And then the article that comes out is, they're fighting for their lives for a 10th spot. And
Yeah.
the coach, is saying that they're trying to preserve him. Like, what's to give? Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
curious. And then it's like, so that's what I mean by theory. It's like you say, hey, look, I don't think this guy is maximizing the talents, but the truth
Mm-hmm.
is, like, the team is just not that good. I
Yeah.
think that's
Facts.
relevant in the AI conversation is because if we're only focused on a specific type of output to fit a financial model, then maybe there is like reason to just scrap everything and do what Sports Illustrated is doing, which
Yeah.
my understanding is it's owned by a private equity company I believe
That's what
to
I
be the
think too.
case,
Yeah. I think they kind of
right?
just almost like abandoned it, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's
Mm-hmm.
like we would rather not have the liability of
Mm-hmm.
what this could potentially bring, because there's still that in a lot of fields, that liability of what AI in terms of creative writing actually is. I mean, we've seen the New York Times with Chat GPT, go through their litigation because they felt that Chat GPT was scrubbing their articles,
Yeah,
and
it was true.
going through
Yeah.
without permission. Yeah, definitely true. But if is that, I guess with that being the case, is like, is that really training it, or is that really, being a tech guy like myself going into, is that the spider going in and just logging it, being able to pull from publicly, available information? Now, could Chat GPT do a better job of citing where the information is coming from? Sure, but does it need to? Is it the writer, or is it the service that's just gathering the information from a database collection of thoughts, ideas, publications, and presenting you that? Like, does it need to be fully, cited
I
in a
think I
sense?
understand where you're
Yeah.
going with that. So, just to tie down that last thought about Sports Illustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and the beat writer for the Athletic, and all these instances in sports specifically where it's like, hey, you got to put something out.
Yeah.
I think that is symptomatic of a larger question, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why do we want / need, depending on your perspective, um, writing from human beings?
Hmm.
What's the point? You
Hmm.
know, and so getting back to what you were saying, like even the act of gathering resources, ingesting those, determining from that what is worth including, like selection,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to include in my work, what I'm going to exclude, how I will portray that information, whether that information will be compressed or expanded, what emphasis I put on that information, all of those things. That's kind of, that comes out in the work. So that's why
Yes.
you could have, right. I think, well, today, sorry to date your show.
No, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah. Well, I try to stay away from the dates so that way it's like, more evergreen as possible.
Yeah, most
But
of, no, we
just
good.
but then balancing that with a concrete example, right? So today
Mm-hmm.
there is a book somewhat about basketball by this popular National Book Award finalist Hanif Abdul Rakib,
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
very popular nonfiction writer. Okay,
Yep.
and he is using basketball as a way, in his experience living in Ohio, and the LeBron years, and the
Mm-hmm.
LeBron leaving and returning. He's using that as a way of getting at role models, and like, what does it mean to be successful, and so on and so forth. It's a really good book. People should absolutely check it out. It's called There's Always This Year. I'm using that
Mm.
concrete example as a way to say what he writes about basketball, or even LeBron specifically, or his experiences with basketball or whatever, is going to be absolutely different than what I write or what you write.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what are
Yep.
we actually like? What do we actually want from the writing? So, like, like, why are we reading it? Is the question
Yeah.
that I think that is always lost in these conversations. Like, we say, hey, like, so you appreciate this. I spend a lot of times selling things, whether specifically as a salesperson or as an entrepreneur selling my own
Mm-hmm.
services. And so one of the age old conversations when you're training salespeople is you're talking about features versus benefits. And so when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
AI, generative AI specifically, Chat GPT specifically, a lot of people list off all these different featers, right? But nobody ever
Mm-hmm.
asks
Mm-hmm.
about the benefits. Like, what is it?
Benefits.
Like,
Yep.
what is it that we're trying to do, and
Mm-hmm.
why do we need it? I also don't think that there's a lot of conversation around the economic structures and incentives of
Mm-hmm.
why certain things are pushed on us. So if you and I got together and said we need to do a specific thing, or parts of our processes need to be improved, need to be more efficient because we're building something, and this is just what it requires, and we
Yeah.
had our own inputs, and it gave us our own specified outputs. Um, why is that not called artificial intelligence? You know what I'm saying? Because the reality is that,
Facts.
probably there's some type of, computation going that could be labeled as AI, maybe even generative. But nobody is talking about it like that. So I think the language is very confusing. I think even calling it artificial intelligence is very confusing because it doesn't work like, the computation on a MacBook is not the same as what you might call like computation in a human brain, like a biological computation. Training, even that, we've got long held, well established copyright laws.
Yes.
And why now, the I'll get called a Luddite or something because I'm just saying, like, to me, it's just I don't think it is morally, ethically, or legally correct to take work that, maybe if you're writing a, 3,000 word feature, some people, 5,000 word feature, that person might have worked on that for 3 to 5 months. If you just say, hey, it's online, so I can use it.
Yeah. That drives me nuts, because it's like, proper referencing is key. I think of when you mentioned the LeBron reference, I think it was brilliant because it makes me think of someone like Brian Windhorst, right? Like Brian Windhorst's whole career, in ESPN, it was based on following LeBron, and his telling of LeBron's tale started in high school, which, him narrating, him giving you the facts, him always being around as being that trusted source for LeBron news elevated him to the position he's at now at ESPN. One of the top correspondents, has his own podcast, doing a lot of great stuff, financially great now, out of Ohio, living in LA. And that was without ChatGPT. So it's like when you're looking at someone like a Brian Windhorst or many other writers, someone like a Scoop Jackson, someone that, has years and years and years of basketball history and knowledge, but did not have a LeBron that he could constantly give analysis to that a network would find valuable. Now you can put a Scoop Jackson or a Brian Windhorst as like an AI replicant, especially with the history that's already been told by those two. And a person could just take that information for reference and recreate a Scoop Jackson type of personality on TV just by the research. Are we seeing the advent of the how do I want to call this, the template anchor? You know what I mean? Where every anchor is like your 5 or 6 o'clock news. I mean, Sports Center was known for anchors, being very colorful, being very, opinionated in a sense, seeing what they seen on TV and being able to relay that to the audience. I Do you think that's going away with the way we spoke about like Scoop and Windhorse and how AI is potentially going to create a more formalized versions of that history knowledge?
Uh, Probably yeah, probably yeah. I guess the question is like, for each individual to answer is, do you think it's a good idea?
Yes. Yes. I
So
guess that was my next part of it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also how do you, I guess the follow up to that is like, is creative writing or opinionated writing, is that still part of the writing career, or will it still be a part of the writer career?
Uh, So that's the challenging part,
Mm-hmm.
because um, I posted on Threads the other day, something to the effect of the financialization of everything is uh, is ruining the enjoyment of everything, or is
Yes.
ruining
Big
everything we
time.
enjoy. So the
Big
financialization
time.
of everything is ruining everything we enjoy, and so much of our lives is now reduced to, well, is this going to make money?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, And is this money not just is this going to make money, but is this going to make money for who? Like for people who already have lots and lots and lots of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so again, like I mean, I think part of my whole thing is to ask specific questions. I see myself writing inside of a very specific tradition, you know, that would include, you know, people like a Richard Wright or Ralph Ellison or James Baldwin or James Allen McPherson, Toni Morrison, Audre Lorde.
Legends.
Yeah, you know. So I'm seeing myself, you know, writing in a certain tradition of you know, W.E.B. Du Bois, like people who are like provoking thought, because I have a deep belief that on some level artists are philosophers.
I agree, big time.
Right,
big time.
And so a part of the project of philosophy, as I understand it, is answering the question like, how do we live a better life? Yeah, as individuals and as a collective, right? How can we live better? How can we do better? How can we be better to ourselves and each other? And so that's the reason why I keep on asking, like, yeah, like, is there, you know, so recently in the last couple of weeks, I took all these social media apps off my phone, and one of the things that, you know, I would do is put a time limit on there. And then even when I was using it, I would use it through the browser. And so I sent a screenshot of something to a friend of mine. And she was like, why are you using the browser? Like, that's terrible. And I was like, yeah, I know, but it's a speed bump, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, but it's so inefficient. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything, I'm trying to slow myself down from thinking like, hey, look, this is really a pain in the ass. I don't want to do this right now today, right? Because that's all kind of sucking all of our attention in. And let me just speak for myself, like, you know, taking me away from.
Speak for me too. It's taking my attention away.
Right?
You're speaking for me too.
And so, you know, so to that, the question was like, you know, she's like, well, why are you doing this? And for her, the answer is like, well, it's more efficient if you just have the app. If for me, like, that's the question that I'm starting to ask all the way around. So the question I'm asking about generative AI specifically as it is marketed is like, in each instance, why? So the answer to why I've gotten on, let's say, some type of illustration, is that people are saying, well, this is democratizing art. And I was like, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? And they say, well, I don't know how to draw, and now I can make a beautiful picture. And I'm like, I don't know how to draw. And so you probably won't see me post it on Instagram or Threads, right? But I still might sketch something here or there because art is already democratized. Like, you know what I'm saying? You grab a pencil, you grab a piece of paper, and, you know, if you desire to get better at it, sure, some people are wired to, you know, to have, you know, some type of like visual like output. I do think that part is true, because I think we all have different ways that we're wired. So I'm not saying that part is untrue, but I do think it's possible to improve and to get better.
Yes, most definitely.
But for a long time, people have wanted to have become an artist without going through the process of making art.
But that's with everything, though, right? Everybody want to go to the league without having to shoot a jump shot, without putting in the work. Everybody want to do everything. Like, that's how people are, you know?
Yeah. So that's why I keep going back to why. So James Baldwin, in his, you know, famous creative process essay, and I think this is something that we also, you know, started to talk about before, is, you know, we ask the question why, when we are cutting down trees, right, clearing out land, and building more apartments and more houses and more buildings and this and that and the other, right? And we say we do that to make the world a more human dwelling place. Well, then James Baldwin says, but then also, like, we have the responsibility to not just conquer that wilderness to make it somewhere we can live, but we also have the responsibility to conquer the wilderness of ourselves. to make that a more so then he says the precise role of the artist then is to eliminate the darkness, blaze roads through that vast forest so that we will not in all our doing lose sight of the purpose, which is after all to make the world a more human dwelling place. And so my issue with a lot of the tech that's pushed on us, it's not that that it exists, it's not that it's going to replace jobs and all these different things, because if we're keeping it funky, if there is tech that exists to lessen the workload, say by 50% of any job,
we're gonna do it.
And we should, but then the people who are doing those jobs should still have those jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right. So it's like, okay, but the point is not that we're making work easier. The point is that we're like, it's to capitalize financially. Right. And I think that's a part of, if people don't want to believe that this is impacting everything, including what we're talking about, art. So what we're talking about in the green room is we're talking about the fact that property is so expensive. Right. And so you're looking for a location to be able to get people together, because a part of property being so expensive is that's a part of the reason why we don't have so many third spaces anymore.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And so because we don't have third spaces anymore, what you're doing here with, bringing folks together, sharing ideas and stuff like that is a part of your overall mission. But, another part of your mission is like getting folks in the same room. You know, so it's like the fact that, but why is the property so expensive? Well, I can tell you that Atlanta is like LA, is like Philly, is like every other large city where a few people own so much of the property.
Yep.
And for some of them, it's even worth more to just hold on to it.
To hold it. Yep.
Until you find somebody else who sees it on a spreadsheet and they're like, look, we can hold this for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever, right? And so that's how it impacts it, us as artists. Because then again, how many new galleries actually make sense? Like I was listening to the Bare Facts podcast.
Oh yeah, Josh Bear's dope.
Yep. Right. So what was this last month? I think they were talking about, or maybe it was in February, January. Either way, I don't think that's material. The thing was, they were talking about all these galleries that are closing and how difficult it is to be a gallerist in this particular economy, because it's already not necessarily the best business model for, gallerist to artist, but then you got the other side where gallerist to landlord, where it's like, it's a terrible business.
It's the business model, bro. And I've spoken on this for so long. It's kind of like going back to I mean, you dropped a few gems right there that I was like taking notes on. I was like, oh, I got to touch on that. With like democratization of art, whether that's art galleries, artists, museums, there is this goal towards financial consistency and being able to predict what you can get. That's why a lot of brands are going towards certain artists. And I've told artists, because a lot of artists that are like, I'm trying to find a gallery for my work, I'm trying to do this and that. And I've asked them the question that we've said plenty of times here. Why? Why do you feel you need a gallery for your work? And it's because they feel that the art world, not art making, is not a democratic place, which it isn't. Let's just be fair. It is not. At the same time, the difficulty of being an artist, I don't know that it's as difficult as being a gallerist in a lot of places, because a gallerist, you have overhead immediately. Immediately the moment you open up that space, you have overhead by the real estate on your walls, because you can't show every single artist on your roster. You can't show every single artwork that they have in the studio. You have to guarantee or almost be sure that the work you put up on your walls, real estate, can help you keep these doors open for the next month. And with a lot of artists, they don't understand why many gallerists have to stay with consistent names. Is because the collectors and the people that patronize these spaces are familiar with those names. Like if you find a person who's, let's say, 40, 50, 60, middle-aged person, they're going into a store to buy a drink, and they see Pepsi on the left and they see Starry on the right, you know, they're going to look at it and be like, oh, well, I'm consistently, I know what I'm going to get from Pepsi. I know what I'm going to get, and there's also this brand awareness, this brand relationship with Pepsi, to where it's like, oh, you're drinking a Pepsi. There's this somehow commercial cool that comes with passing someone a Pepsi. I mean, Kylie Jenner made it cool back in the days where passing someone a Pepsi, and even protests were all good afterwards. But I digress. But that difficulty is rubbing artists the wrong way because they don't understand the business. Is because the business is not being taught to artists. The business is being taught to the gallerists, so they're having to maneuver in a way. So I say all that to say, the AI, with many artists think that it's being democratic, giving them a chance to compete, is actually limiting their chances of getting in the gallery. Because as a gallerist, if it's now made it easier for me to create artwork, and I'm a gallerist, and maybe I'm an artist, maybe I'm not that good, but I have a space that I can now show my work. And if AI is helping me, why do I need to help you when I now have myself as an avenue? I know plenty of gallerists who are artists that have been using these new tools and their space as a collaborative option to boost their own careers, to get commissions off other artists to help buy their materials, buy their supplies. So there's this kumbaya feeling that if galleries were more equitable, it would be more opportunities for artists. And that's just not the case. And the same thing, like you say, with these writing teams, New York Times and all that, it's like, why do we need this new thing? Is it to bring more money, or is it to allow for more equity in this? And I don't think the art world has posed that question, let alone answered it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and in a way, we've all accepted this title as consumer. And so,
Facts.
because we're a
Facts.
consumer, our lives are oriented to consumption. And because our lives are oriented to consumption, we have the expectation that there will be something for us to consume. There's going to be stuff on Netflix. There's going to be stuff on social media, and it's just like, I just want to be entertained.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what you were saying about the business of art, like it's actually, it's not, I will say that it can be challenging, but it's not difficult to make art.
Mm-hmm.
It can be
Mm-hmm.
challenging to make art according to your own specific tastes and preferences, and to really say, look, if I like a buddy of mine, Matteo Ascaripour, he has a book coming out called The Great Hemisphere, Fire, right? And I read that and I say, man, I am not that good. I gotta go back to the drawing board, right? Because whatever I was about to put out, there's some bullshit compared to Mateo, right?
I know that feeling, bro. I know
So
that
okay,
feeling.
so when you get to that feeling, like, could that be considered difficult? I mean, yeah, but then that goes back into like why you make art, because you have an impulse to do the thing, and your taste level is over your level of ability. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're always working to close that gap.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so to me, like, that's the process of art making. You get what I'm saying?
Facts.
Like,
Yes.
to me. However, that's not the process of like making a profit.
Yeah, it's not art selling.
And so,
it ain't the process to art sales at all.
No.
Perfect.
So
perfect example.
Is it difficult to have an art business? Yes. Yes. Right. And so
Hell yes.
that gets right. So that gets back into the question of like, why? To me, everything comes back to why. So it's like, hey, look, if I'm trying to hit a lick because I see this person is a celebrity painter, this person, I don't know why anybody would get into writing for money. Probably the same thing for like visual arts too, right? It's like, why would you do this for money,
Yeah.
right?
Real quick,
Because
not to cut you off real quick, my buddy Kenny Schachter, who's one of the top writers for ArtNet, he's done a lot of this, really, really great guy. But
yeah,
he hit me when we were talking during Freeze. He was like, bro, he was like, I know you love art. I know you love writing about art, this and that. He's like, but how are you making money? And I was like, you know, tough, like hard. That's how I'm making money. Having to write different things, having to curate different shows, consulting here and there. And he was like, man, I feel bad for everybody who's a writer or who's a curator, because you have to actually, like, just like you said, you have to actually financialize what you're doing, and it takes away from the teaching, the explaining, the creativity in the building of what it is. So yeah, I just wanted to add it in. Like, it was brilliant. You said that, brilliant, and it just
yeah.
brought
Well,
that
I
right in my
appreciate
mind.
that, man. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it. But it's like the gap between our ability and our taste. I think that is the point of like
Mm-hmm.
us getting to it, because there's this impulse that's driving us, and when we put it down on paper or wherever, whatever your medium is, then you realize I'm not as good as I think good is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as good as I think good is, right? And so that's where we get to work, because you're like, okay, and that's where we get to revise. And that's where we get to doing it over and over again. And that's why it might take 10 years to write your first novel or whatever. That's why it
Mm-hmm.
might take, 10 years for you to go from like, okay, well, I'm doing small stuff and my homies think it's cool. And then I start doing a few shows and, hundreds of people come out, to like, oh, now after 10 years, finally somebody is recognizing. And still that might not even pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, why do we do it? I mean, it's something to do. It's something there, and there's something
Yeah.
that's driving us to do this something to do.
Yeah.
But I also
Yeah.
think that there's a meaning that we're making. So I was saying that my view, I definitely view, for the most part, there's our artists are, for the most part, there's like some philosophical thing happening here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also think that there is something that's just guiding us to a specific place that is important, that each individual is kind of bringing out. And so there's
Yeah.
something particular to your situation, there's something particular in your socialization, there's something
Mm-hmm.
particular to you that's different than what's particular to me, and that's driving you to do your work and me to do my work. And there's something for us to
Mm-hmm.
learn and to take, and that's making us more human, that's
Yes.
reminding us of what it is to be human. I think that's very important. But then, going back to James Baldwin, I do quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking he's got an essay he's got several essays like this, but one essay in particular where he's talking about how what you were saying, that on the business side we're looking for predictability,
Mm-hmm.
but on the art
Mm-hmm.
side it's almost like against institutions and predictability and all this other stuff. And
Yes.
that's why I don't want to speak for anyone else, but that's why I don't think there's anything wrong with you saying, hey, look, I like this because it's cool, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I like the way it looks. It matches my couch. I want to, hang it over here, whatever. Hey, we need you to
Yeah.
buy work too. Whoever you are,
Yep.
if you're
Yep.
buying work because you think it looks good in a space, please buy it. You
Please
know,
buy it. Yeah.
please buy it.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to discourage that, but I think there is something deeper going. So James Baldwin says like there's like that's an answer. Let's call that an answer or solution. But then he says
Mm-hmm.
there's like there's questions like beneath the answers, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
or he put it like this: he said, "There's a visible reality that hides a deeper question," you know,
So
and
real.
that's the thing that that I'm getting at, and I think that's probably specific to the writer and the type of writer I fashion myself to be. But I think that's also like people who are thinking deeply about meaning making, and
Mm-hmm.
provoking some type of like, it's like I'm trying to get you to see something that's not there.
Yes. And I think that's where you and I as writer and curator, I think that's where we're so aligned,
Mm-hmm.
because that it's almost like that like that soothsaying or that truth telling or whatever. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's like I'm trying to guide you through these objects, through these words, through these interpretations, to see what you might be overlooking, and
Mm-hmm.
to guide you to a way. That's why teachers are important. That's why tour
Mm-hmm.
guides are important. That's why
Mm-hmm.
all these things, because yeah, you can walk in the wilderness, you can explore, no one says you can't, but you may not know the dangers, you may not know the road that gets you to a destination, so it might take you longer to get to that understanding of what this art piece is, of what this writer is trying to get across, of what this uh, news article is about, or just the underlying back end of storytelling. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the writer is the ultimate curator. That's why writing is a part of curating. When folks, curate shows, I've asked, here and there, but like, is there a book with this? Is there, a publication, or is there something with this to where what's the basis for, again, the question, why? Why is this show happening? Like, what are you trying to get across? What are you trying to tell me? Is it just, a survey of artists in the city? Cool. Say that. What do you find brilliant about these artists? You're that first level, or that first door into me understanding what the hell is going on. Because if I don't get that door, if that door is locked per se, then I'll just go on, believing whatever story is told to me about whatever that is. Or if that door is guiding me a certain way, it'll never allow me to truly connect with it, with how I'm feeling inside. I have this prefabricated feeling of, what humanity is in this writing, in this show, in this curatorial effort. And I think once people start looking at the creative thought process in that realm, I think the true democratization of understanding will happen. Because, like you said, bro, like anybody can make a piece of something and call it art, especially if it's approved by you. I can create something right now. I could write something and say, you know what, I think it's great. And I'm going to put it out just like what people post on Instagram every goddamn day. Like they post something that they feel that we need to see. They feel it's good. But I'm also with you with, seeing a colleague's work and just knowing that their creative thought process, what they did, was at a level that you admire so much that you like, yo, I can't put out what I'm thinking of yet, because I saw the level that I thought I was at. And I think, again, that's the level of that LeBron, that Michael Jordan, that Allen Iverson, that Kobe, that Mamba mentality is. It's like, yo, like Kobe saw Jordan. He watched him every damn day and even asked him questions while they're playing. You know what I mean? And I think with the advent of AI, or the way that AI is used now, there's no real way of constantly being able to watch and learn. You're just spoon fed the results here. There's no show the work part of the test. You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean, because I think even before we, the last couple of years where Gen AI has been, kind of all the rage,
Mm-hmm.
what we have seen, even with so much of art being mediated by algorithms, I think
Yeah.
we've seen a flattening of styles, of
Facts.
perspectives, of for a lot of different reasons. Because you could post some dope shit and then not get any likes, so then people are like, okay, well, I'm going to do what gets likes.
Mm-hmm. So
Or you can
true.
see,
So true.
hey, somebody pop off and, oh, you see something about a brand deal, or, something
Mm-hmm.
about, some type of, some organization paid X amount of money, like, okay, well, this is what the market is, so I'm going to do that. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that we've already seen where, in my world of writing, like, I mean, I was a part of a writing group where, I kind of made a lot of people upset, because this particular group, they were, there were a lot of people who were writing about current events.
Mm-hmm.
And so, something racist, somebody in power, would do or say something racist, and then let's say 4 or 5 people would be like, "Yeah, that was racist," and then they started accusing each other of plagiarism, and I'm like, "Yeah, but none of this is like novel." You know what I'm saying? There's like you haven't said anything that nobody who's not even reading your stuff is saying.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
in that case, like I see why, like people are like, okay, well, if this is the bar,
Hmm.
then we can just automate it. But I
Yes,
think, but what I
yeah. Yep. No, keep going. I'm
yeah,
sorry, my
but
bad. I mean,
well, no,
yeah.
no, it's cool. To me, I look at this as a call to double and triple down on originality, double and triple down
Facts.
on like your own particular perspective, like
Hmm.
to double and triple down on like, hey, this is why I bring it to this, and I have to bring this into the world, whether or not it makes me rich, or like scratch even making me rich, like whether or not it's going to pay my bills. And I think
Hmm.
that's where we're going,
Hmm.
because I'm, here's an example. In the last couple of years, do you see visual artists? Let's say I'm also a photographer, right? Do you
Hmm.
see them leaning more into Instagram or less?
That's actually has been now. Let me say, visual artists, my photography friends, less.
Less,
My
for sure.
painting
For
friends,
yeah, more.
more.
Gotcha.
Because they're trying to. It's that one meme is like, I'm trying to paint, I'm not trying to work an algorithm. But kind of going back to, they see what bold color, they see what certain images in painting does
I
to
see what you
their
mean.
account. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So they're,
Yep.
you said it right on the nose too. They're shifting their creative focus into things that are logical, into things that are expressive and make sense, into things that allow them to get visibility because
Yeah.
of economic situations, because of trying to fit in that template that a gallery finds respectable or deemable to sell, that can get you into a space, because there's an ego that comes with that. The
Yep.
ego doesn't come with, I created something beautiful that I'm proud with, that represents me, someone saw it and liked it. People, artists, creatives these days need everyone to like it, and they need the validation by the likes, by these brand deals and all of these things, that to keep them going. I mean, we see it daily on threads, to where there are folks going through economic troubles, they're going through creative troubles and whatever, and they're just like, I want to give up. I don't want to do this. I'm trying to figure out how. And then they just start changing their whole um, style up to fit what's popular. That's that, in a sense, to me, like, they've already given up. At that sense, it's hard. It's hard as hell, but it's worth it to me to stay creative, because soon that creativity, I should say, that's been buried, always comes to light, and it's always accepted once, because it's there as a breath of fresh air, and we don't get that all the time because of that financialization and commercialization of everything. It's sad.
It is. Well, so Audre Lorde said it like this. She was saying that there are no new ideas. There are only new ways of making them felt, new
Hmm.
ways of examining what these ideas feel like. And
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm just like, if at this point I'm just, anachronistic. I don't know. But I'm still like, I need to like feel something. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Because to me,
same.
like, that's the point. I don't.
Yep.
Otherwise, I don't care. Like this. There's a lot of music that I don't know. I don't even know that I have outgrown it as much as it's like, well, why does this matter? Like, why did
Yes.
you choose to break the silence?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think that's, to me, if through this project and other things that you're doing, like, to me, I would encourage you to lean into the success of provoking people to ask themselves why.
Mm.
Like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Why am I getting? Because here's the other thing: we're talking about the role of the curator. We're talking about the role
Hmm.
of the writer, the artist, but we could also talk a lot more about the role of the audience, right? And
Ooh,
why, like, being
let's
a
talk
passive
about it. Yes.
consumer of things is really not the way it should go down. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
because this is a
Yes.
conversation. It's a human conversation, a conversation in humanity. What we're doing.
Yes. I mean, it goes to what you said earlier too. And again, I've reiterated this with a bunch of different collectors and folks in the art world that I've talked about, is that, it doesn't matter what I think about what you're buying, because I have my opinion. But if you are buying, I'm cool with that, because you're helping an artist. Your collecting decision fuels market, other market decisions. You deciding to buy one artist's piece and then three more of that artist's piece tells another collector that you feel that there's value in this artist. And believe it or not, that purchase does way more than an Instagram post, does way more than, going on there, doing a whole live, doing this and that. Like, the fact that someone is willing to take something that they've worked hard for and exchange it for something that you create, that value is exponential. It's one of those things where, like, my finance teacher used to always call them jollies, in a sense. Like, you eat a donut, you get 2 jollies. Somebody buys something from you, you get 10 jollies. Like, it brings your level of jollies that much higher than actually, like, getting a museum show, getting, something else. Like, someone actually decided to say, hey, this would be great in my home. You created something that's relevant to me. Like, if someone buys, an author's book, and gets a signed copy and has it on their shelves, that's moments of that person's life and brain that someone else cherishes, to pay a price for it, to put it on their shelves that they can peek back into. Because if I buy a book from Ezra, might not always can get Ezra on the podcast, might not always can get him on the phone or whatever, but I can peek into that book and get a scintilla of, his thought process, and get an idea of leaning into how he sees the world. Same thing with an artist. For a second, I can get into how you visually see the world and connect with you. I think there's something brilliantly beautiful about being able to tap into that unadulterated, authentic creative side of a creative and have that energy translated. There's something about that.
No, I agree, and I know you spend a lot of time with artists,
Mm-hmm.
helping them see how to, like, take what it is that they do
Yes.
and to put it in a form that's collectible, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
And so that's a part of the process that they need people like you.
Mm-hmm.
They need other folks who are saying, hey, look, you just do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
Mm-hmm.
help and create that. You don't compete with the algorithm or chat GPT or stuff like that, because you can get 10,000 likes and no sales this year. It looks
Facts.
cool. People are going to double tap that, and then they're going to go to the next,
Mm-hmm.
gossip thing on the shade room, and then they're going
Yep.
to go to the next political post and this and the other, and then you're going to
Yep.
have to do it again because they're like, within 5 minutes they've forgotten who that artist was.
Was. Yep.
Who is
Yep.
it? I don't know. But I think that's a part of the thing where what we were talking about, like, bringing folks together. That's the part where the collaboration, where the mentorship, where the training, where the learning, I think that's the part where it matters, because it's like, hey, look, I'm chasing something and I don't know what it is yet. And you're like, yeah, I don't know what it is yet either, but you got to pursue this. I can help you
Mm-hmm.
take what this is, and I can help you put it in a form that other people will be able to kind of see what it is too. But that's just my
Yes.
perspective, but I'm not going to do it for you. You right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
similar to if I'm working with an editor, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Editors work wonders because they're like, yo, this is crazy form. I'm trying to do this and that. I'm pull this and it's experimental and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, man, I haven't seen that before. Show me. Right.
Yeah.
And so then we start putting it into a way that at the end you're like, wow, this body of work, this is brilliant. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it gets to you and you're like, wow, this nigga was on one. You know what I'm saying? But there's a
Mm-hmm.
process that goes to it. And even like on the smaller level. So I guess I should have personalized this a little bit earlier when we were talking about it. Um, I have had to kind of pivot and shift myself because I'm like, hey, look, I don't want to do like if there's some concepts, some ideas I'm working on. I don't want to rush these out to feel like I got to get something out. It,
Yes.
what I wanted, but I do want to make sure that I'm completing things. So then I started a newsletter, and then I thought about it, and I said, okay, well, poets have chapbooks, and I never see fiction and nonfiction writers put out chapbooks, right? But if I put out a 30-page, 30, 40-page chapbook, what would that look like? And so then, a mentor of mine, she was telling me how she developed a knack for, her storytelling knack. A lot of that started bearing out when she was writing flash fiction, because flash fiction is up to 1,000 words. It could be shorter. Sometimes they have even shorter than that called microfiction. But either way, 1,000 words, you got to get into it. You know what I'm saying? Immediately. Right? You don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, somebody gets to read a story in 5 to 7 minutes or whatever, however long it's going to take to read that story. And so you think about that. And I said, well, maybe I should create a chapbook. And then I came up with this idea where it's like, while I'm still working on some of the long form things, and I'm not trying to rush it or trying to make it anything that it's not, just so I can say, oh, look, I'm putting out a book, or oh, look, this is, just so I can have like, so some kind of output.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, let me work on a different form that might allow me, to not just come to completion of something, but then it would also help me to build an audience that's outside of what an algorithm is looking like, right? And so, because like say my work and Reggie, who you had on here, our work is different. And so, he's able to, show his process visually and then put it up, and people are like, oh, that's dope. Right. And then even he made a post the other day. He's like, yo, I'm just doing this for me because I don't think that any of this is actually turned into, paying clients when he did his like portfolio.
Facts.
Right.
Facts.
And so I'm like, hey, look, I'm doing this for me because I think for every artist, the thing that's most important is for you to complete a thing. If I was going to tell myself 10 years ago, what would it be? It's complete more things faster. Right. Like, let me even rephrase that. Complete more things more frequently, not even faster, more frequently. Because I think there's something that you gain by saying, I've done this and I moved on and I've grown. Right. So I'm completing more. I'm completing this, and then I'm completing the next thing, and I'm completing the next thing. I think there's something that grows there than getting stuck into like, this is not exactly, I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? This is not exactly what I want it to be and all this other stuff. It's like, it's never going to be. There's still that gap that we talked about between like your ability and your taste. So there's never going to be exactly what you want it to be. But the thing is, like, I think there's a certain level of growth. So then I said, okay, well, let me marinate on that. So the end result is right now I'm working on a 4-book series of chapbooks, right?
Nice.
Where I have 4 to 6 pieces of flash fiction and 1 proper length short story, if you want to call it a proper length, right? And I'm just going to promote it like music. Like a recording artist, like La Russell or like Coda the Friend promotes their mixtapes, and then it's like, okay, and then there's an album, right? And so maybe the album is, if I sell a book to a traditional publisher or something like that, I don't know, but either way, what I'm saying is I'm taking this idea that I have to put something in a journal or a literary magazine or, be traditionally published or whatever. And I've got to use the social media in order to get people to look at me and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing, this, that, and the third. And for me to be able to take that and say, look, I have a platform. I'm modifying that process the way that people think in a way that works for me, in a way that I'm able to put something together and to share with people, say, hey, look, this is what I'm working on. I think you would like this. Would you mind checking this out? And when I say like I'm doing it like almost like the Russell, I mean like it's even all the way down to the pay what you want for it. Pay what you think is worth. Right?
Yeah.
Because the idea is It is brilliant because the idea is like, look, if you fuck with me, then you're gonna fuck with me. So I'm trying to instead of trying to beat the algorithm, I'm trying to lower the entry, or like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to improve like a way for you to actually get into my work. I don't think that people appreciate that enough. Like there's got to be like a gateway or a path for people to get into your work. And so that's what I'm trying to do. It's like, hey, look, you know, a hardcover book's going to cost you $30, right? And then, you know, it depending on the book, it could take you 10 hours, it could take you 20 hours to read, and then you also got to put it somewhere. So there's three things that you're dealing with. You're dealing with, you know, the finances of it, right? And then, you know, today, if I drop today, there's like 20 other books that came out today.
Yeah, exactly.
That people who might read me would also possibly read some of these others, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, definitely. So you got the cost of the book, you've got the cost of the time to read the book, if you know, if it's going to be read, and then you got the storage space, right? And so what I'm saying is, and then of course all the stuff on the front end where you're putting out this stuff online and saying, hey, look, guys, I'm you know, somebody that you should talk to, or, you know, you're sending out all these submissions to these magazines and journals, and you're like, hey, look, will you please publish my short story, you know, and all these other things. What I'm saying is, look, whether I meet you in person or whether I meet you online, I'm just trying to create a situation similar to the Russell, similar to Code of the Friend, where it's like there's a low level of investment for you to get into my work and decide if you fuck with me or not. If you don't fuck with me, that's cool. But I'm not trying to leave that up to Instagram and Threads and whatever. If you fucks with me, give me your email address and I'll let you know the next time I have something else. That's the only reason why I started a newsletter. Like, it's not to become like a popular newsletter guy, you know?
Yeah, same. That's like, why I got the website stuff. Like, hey, bring it. I want people, like you said, if you fucks with me, I have a whole website to where it's not just the stuff for today, like Instagram give you, or stuff for 8 hours ago. There's stuff from my whole portfolio to where you can dive deeper if you want to, you know?
Right. Because what's more important to me than whether I posted something on Instagram or Threads and I got, you know, 100 likes, let's just use 100, right? What's more important to me is that over the last month or so that I've, you know, kind of focused on putting out a newsletter, I've now got 125 people who are like, I want to hear more from you, right?
Yep.
Where there's a relationship that's either built because I know some of these people, or that is building. That's, to me, like, that's more important. And it's not even the number. It's the fact that, you know, some people even talk about that, you know, 1,000 true fans. I'm sure there's some, you know, a lot of merit to that. You know, I'm not trying to give any kind of marketing advice. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to underscore the importance of quality relationships with folks and not numbers.
Yes.
If we're focused on building a relationship, how it doesn't matter what social media platform you use. If you're saying, hey, look, I'm only using this to get to my people. And so my people might be 2 or 3 people that see my work and they're consistently going to like it, you know? And then it's like, oh, okay, well, look, he's got a new book out. I was proud to say that I was the first person to pay $1 for a friend's novelette that she put on her website. And I only know because, you know, on Squarespace, they show you like an order number, right? And I was like 00001, right? I was the first person to pay $1 for her novelette.
That's
I screenshotted it. I didn't even say anything to her about it. But it was like, to me, I'm like, I am supporting an artist. And then I posted about it. Hey, look, y'all should get this. Right. To me, those are the types of relationships I'm trying to build with other people, where it's like, hey, look, you know, I read this, and you like, I've started getting text messages now in DMs, not just from the comment section, but people actually contacting me and saying, hey, look, there's something you wrote that really made me think. You know, there's something you wrote that really made me change the way I see this. And for me, like, those are the types of relationships I'm trying to build over time. It just takes time, right? And so that's why I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, do I want to write This Great Hemisphere by Mateo Ascaripour? Like, that's my man's. I'm trying to kick his ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And in the most respectful way.
No,
And
of
I'm
course.
just saying that
Yes.
because I think I started reading it. I'm like, man, this is incredible. Right?
It moved
So
you.
whatever, it moved me, right? And so whatever that is that I'm working on, that is a similar volume, a novel, right? I'm working on a novel. That's, it's like I'm still working towards that, right?
Yeah.
But I want to give people a way to, like, to have a relationship with me. So that's why I'm working on this other stuff. And I think I think that's important, right? But I think a lot of times we have this idea that I say, Badir, okay, you're doing this and that and the third, right? I can do that, right? I think there's a part of that that's healthy, and then there's a part of that that's like delusional, because I have no idea what it takes for you to do what you do. You know what I'm saying? And I think the stronger the impulse to say I can do that, and to delude yourself into thinking you can do that, to read freaking James Allen McPherson and to be like, I can do that. That doesn't make any sense.
That's crazy.
Paul Beatty, The Sellout. I don't know. That might be the best satire I've ever read. I don't know. Maybe, right? As far as a novel.
Yeah.
To think like, okay, now let me try. You know what I mean? Like there's something delusional about that, right?
Oh yeah.
But I think that is the thing that is that's the impulse we should follow, right? To say I'm going to do that, and that is, I think, the sincerest compliment is that I see what I consider somebody to be at the top of their game, at the top of a game, really the game, and to say I can do that. I think that's the sincerest form of flattery, and I think in that process between our taste and our ability, I think in that process, that's where the art is. That's what we're starting to see. Like, actually, I can't do. Prime example. I have a friend who is a lawyer and he's a recording artist. Right. His favorite recording artist, his favorite rapper is Andre 3000.
3K.
Right. So he sees 3 Stacks as Kobe, Michael, LeBron, whatever you believe, right? We don't want to start that debate on an art show, right? So whatever you believe. But the interesting thing about that is when I asked him, I said, "Hey, bro, like, are you better than Andre 3000?" He gave me the illest answer I've ever heard. He says, "I think he's the best at what he does, but I think I'm the best at what I do."
I feel that. And
I'm getting better. So to me, like, that's the process. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the process. Yeah. And that's the reason why we have so many different people doing so many wonderful things. And I like it because his thing is he's not competing with 3K. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not competing with Andre Benjamin. You know, it's not even a competition like that. It's that there's something that was inspiring him that's like, okay, this is feeding that impulse that's driving me to do a thing.
Yeah, that motivation. That motivation, like, man. Okay, that is. But yeah, my brother, we got to do a part 2 of this. I know I got to finish doing some work, man. Yeah. But we got to do a part 2, bro, because I haven't even touched on a lot of the other things that we. Folks, please believe we bringing brother Ezra back, because this information is why I love talking to this good brother, and we can just continuously build. And I love building with good brothers. Man, please check him out. I will be posting this information on the screen. You already know. And get the newsletter. Check out those books. I'll be posting some of those books because I'm going to be getting some of them myself, like especially the Sellout. I want to read that. And my brother, thank you just for building with me on just trying to make sure we get this first convo done. I mean, I know it's been a long time coming. It's taking us about a month just so we can sit down and have a full, quick 1-hour convo. But I'm more than thankful, bro. I'm more than happy, you know, just to even be building with you, man. Like, and just having these conversations with good brothers. I think that is truly important, man. Like, it's
it's the best thing that can happen in this world, bro. Like how way I see it, with brothers being able to come together. One brother can teach what another brother doesn't understand, and vice versa, and then take it from there and just build. I think it's the greatest reward on this earth, man. So I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your presence. You know what I mean? Your teaching, bro. Like I'm very thankful to have you on here, my brother.
I'm humbled, and I appreciate being on here. Thank you.
Oh, bro. So y'all already know. Make sure y'all follow Ezra. His information is going to be on the screen, and stay tuned for the part 2 of this, because it's going to be even doper, because we got so much more to talk about. So I'm Badir McCleary, your host and curator. That's Cultural Canvases, and talk to y'all soon. Peace.